Well, the line has come out for Georgia and Alabama, and it's anywhere from 2.5 to 3. The Georgia Bulldogs are favored. I tried to warn y'all about this a little bit of time ago. We've not talked a lot about Georgia, Alabama in the future. We've talked about Georgia, Alabama in the past, and odds makers still think that the dogs are should be favored by about a field goal. Not really a massive percentage chance advantage there. Um, but Georgia should, quote, win the game. Not, it's not a certainty, but you saw, you know, this past weekend that chalk held form. Alabama with a convincing win over Cincinnati, and then Georgia with a more convincing win as about a 7.5 point favorite over Michigan. So I'm not shocked by this at all. It makes sense to me. I follow this stuff closely. Fortunately or unfortunately, I don't bet on sports, believe it or not. But this was one thing that I'd been watching for a while, and when the line came out that Georgia would be about a point favorite um, as a predictive model, that was not shocking. I mean, I think those of us who followed this closely, thought it would probably be about one. But it's moved up since then, and not just on FanDuel, but on Caesars as well. I mean, uh, I believe no, Caesars is right. No, it is 3 at Caesars as well. So you've got a pretty solid-ish field goal advantage for Georgia. It's anywhere from 2.5 to 3. So that means Georgia should win. Doesn't mean it's a certainty by any stretch. It's something like a 55% chance to win. It's not overwhelming, but I'm not surprised. Now listen, on this whole deal, you're going to have a lot of Alabama fake juice coming from this thing. There's going to be the term disrespect is going to be used a lot by the Alabama players, and I think in sports, anything that you can do to motivate yourself. Dabo Swinney does this constantly at Clemson. I mean, they were the number one team in the country and were disrespected. Now Alabama's doing that, so this is like a new thing. To me, I don't like that personally. I would rather be the favorite and I would rather punch your face in. But there's an underdog mentality that some people like to have. I'll tell you this though. Um, just now, this is just me and most rational people. You can't be the underdog if you're Alabama. You can't be the underdog if you're Georgia. You can't be the underdog if you're Texas or USC. I mean, or the Gators or LSU. No one's disrespecting you. You're a huge school with a really good football program. You should never consider yourself the underdog. Now, Georgia's kids have done this in the past too. They've liked to be the underdog. I want to know what's being said privately by Georgia if Alabama starts all this underdog business. Because if I were Kirby and them, I would figure out a way to get offended by that. I mean, there's no this can be a never-ending cycle, but the fact of the matter is, no matter what you're using to motivate, you're going to have to go and execute. You're going to have to actually do what has to be done. We saw Georgia do that in 13 of their 14 games. The only time they really didn't execute for 4 quarters was the Alabama game. And even this past, it's the thing that you love about sports is that it's unpredictable. And you can watch Alabama be extremely up and down during the season and then play so great against Georgia and win. And then they kind of, if you want to call it that, reverted back to being a little less predictable against Cincinnati. Now, Cincinnati's a top 4 team. I believe that. I'm not just saying that. I've said that for a while, since last year at this time. I mean, I knew going into that Peach Bowl, Cincinnati was legit, and you come out of the Peach Bowl, and this whole time I've been talking about this is a legit team. Since Cincinnati was not going to win that game to me, but they certainly stuck in there and fought. Alabama, there are still weaknesses there, and the weaknesses in the whole thing are not exclusive to Georgia. I mean, just because they got their skull caved in a month ago by 17 doesn't mean they can't do the same thing to Bama. And we've seen Alabama really get walloped at times. Now, the final score didn't indicate it in 2017, but Auburn really punched them in the face on that deal. I mean, they really dominated that game. In 18, obviously Clemson blew them out. In 19, LSU basically blew them out. The score was closer because of a late touchdown from LSU. So you can do that to Alabama. Typically, though, what Georgia's got is not the formula that you use to beat Alabama. The folks I've talked about in the past, perhaps with the exception of the 17 Auburn team, they have dynamic quarterbacks: Joe Burrow, Trevor, Deshaun before him, Johnny Manziel, Cam. Those are the type of guys that have beaten Alabama. Now, LSU had a very limited quarterback and beat Alabama, but that was when they didn't score a touchdown. In 2017, I would not necessarily call Jared Stidham a dynamic quarterback. If Stetson Bennett plays the way he did last night, I've not slept since the game, so I'm getting a little confused on the days. I'm going. My last sleep was Thursday. If Stetson plays the way he did last night, Georgia will win. Period. It's just all there is to it. And you know, I said the same thing about if if Grayson Lambert plays the way he did against Carolina in 2015, Georgia would not lose the game, and they just wouldn't lose the game. That was not going to happen with Grayson. With Stetson, yeah, he can play that way again. I mean, Stetson did not play well against the Gators. He did not play well against Alabama. Besides one beyond questionable decision uh, and throw last night, Stetson really played well. I mean, you can make the argument he was the reason they won. That pass to James, the pass to Burton, the wheels, he played exceptionally well. And there have been critics. Hey, listen, and Stetson, I think answered it the right way last night. And this is why I don't like the underdog narrative for Alabama. I mean, look, you got to go perform, man. I mean, like whatever gets you hype getting into the game, I get it. But what I'm saying is, you got to play well so that you play well to win. I listened to Nick earlier today, and he was talking about if you can't get up for the national championship game, what are we doing? And he's right. I mean, any extra motivation is fine, but you've only got 10 days to get worked up here. And the teams, I'd have to check, but the teams will be leaving for well, I don't want to overspeak, but my understanding is it's going to be Friday that they'll be in Indianapolis, at least Georgia. So it could be Friday, could be Saturday. Georgia's not told us officially, and then you're going to play on Monday. There have been obligations, but those are gone now because of what the college football playoff has decided about media obligations. So that's one fewer thing that the Dogs have, and Bama have to deal with. So that will be a very limited thing. But I just, this that Alabama is an underdog to Georgia. That's not going to be a shocking thing in the future. I mean, I don't think it would be shocking for Ohio State to be favored over Alabama in the future. Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State have recruited to the level that it is not at all inconceivable for either of those three teams to be favored over the other. It just so happens with this team at Georgia, the Dogs are favored over Bama. Again, I mean, like, I get it, I guess, for like Will Anderson doing what he's doing at Alabama and the discussion of disrespect, and I it's ridiculous. But what he's doing is hyping himself up. He's just trying to get himself and his teammates, going. I don't know if that's really different than the way the Georgia kids acted last night, which was that winning the Orange Bowl was not a big deal. It was just a game to win so you could play another game. They know everybody knows what's going on here. Everybody's circling one another, and they all want this W. Um, I think it's just I think it might be more about beating the other guy than winning the national championship. It just so happens that this game is a national championship game because I'm going to link it down below, so make sure you read it. If you read my article from today, Nick sees what Kirby's doing and has known for some time. And that Kirby got there in year 2 was surprising. but that was an older group. This group is an older group. This Georgia will be a different team in 22. I still expect them to get to Atlanta, but I don't expect them to win the national championship in 22 as it sits, as I can tell today. You know, but they will have to refurbish the defense, and there's still guys, but this is not dissimilar to the 17 team. If Georgia can if Stetson Bennett will play like he did last night and has the bulk of the season, if Georgia can get after Bryce Young, let's just even say 10% more than they did, then Georgia will win. And um, that's all I have to say. And on the notion of Alabama, not being an underdog, there are only a couple teams that are going to be favored over Alabama. Georgia is one of them. Ohio State would be the other, and in the future, possibly LSU. I mean, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for LSU under Brian Kelly to be favored over Alabama. And the last thing is this: Alabama does not have the exclusivity to being the badass of college football. Other people can do that, and that's what we're trying to see if it's going to happen in Indianapolis this coming, I was going to say weekend, but in the coming days. I mean, that is not exclusively theirs. They earn it. They earn it. But that's not exclusively theirs, and Georgia can take that from them, at least for one night, just the way that Bama did to them. All right, thanks for watching. We'll see you over the website. Make sure you're clicking the link below to get to the website. Thanks for watching. Happy New Year.